tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, so this is the first formal talk of our 10-day Jhana Retreat. So congratulations for those of you who've made it this far. It's an accomplishment. You've survived slightly less than 24 hours. Hopefully you'll make it another 9 days. But the truth is that as long as we maintain diligence, as long as we maintain mindfulness, as long as we maintain focus and ongoing effort and perseverance and persistence, as long as we keep trying, there shouldn't be any problems. There shouldn't, that's an exaggeration. There'll still be problems. They just won't be show-stopping problems. They won't be problems that prevent us from continuing in our practice. So of course we'll experience some difficulties along the way. If we didn't experience any difficulties, we would already be enlightened. So that's why we come to these sorts of programs. It's because we're not enlightened yet. And we're interested in moving in that direction. That's what these meditation retreats are about. They're about helping each one of us move towards enlightenment. So it's normal that we're going to experience some difficulties along the way. Who here has had some difficulties so far? Be honest. Okay, those of you who don't have your hands up are probably lying. So dishonesty is also an impediment on the path, but that's fine. If you actually are having absolutely no problems so far, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Congratulations. Keep up the good work. So some examples of some difficulties that tend to arise. One of the number one difficulties that I virtually guarantee everyone in this room will encounter is pain. Physical pain. Pretty much a given with meditation practice. If you sit still for longer than a few minutes, then your body will start to produce sensations. In truth, your body is producing sensations all the time. That's just what bodies do. However, when we're sitting still, the body tends to produce sensations that we habitually label as unpleasant. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with the sensations themselves. It's just information. It's just the body producing information. That's all it is. There's not a problem there. It's just the body doing what the body does, which is produce sensations. However, we have deeply rooted habits of labeling those sensations as unpleasant, of deciding that we dislike them, that we want them to stop, that we hate them, we want them to go away. So we have these deeply rooted negative reactions, particular kinds of sensations. So we decide that the sensations we're experiencing are painful. We decide that they're unpleasant. We decide that we dislike them. It's a choice that we make. Now, it's a choice that we make very quickly. It's a choice that we're making predominantly on a subconscious level. So for the most part, we're not particularly aware of what we're doing. We're just like, oh, this hurts. And we don't recognize that actually we are making ourselves feel pain. We are creating the experience of pain. So pain is 100% mental, 0% physical. The physical sensation is not pain. The physical sensation is just raw data. It's raw information. It's just your body sending a signal. It's your body sending information about what's going on with your nerve endings. That's it. Pain is 100% mental because pain is what happens when we decide that we dislike a sensation. It's when we decide to reject a sensation. When we decide that a sensation is unbearable, that it's not something we're willing to tolerate. That's the experience of pain. It's entirely in your mind, quite literally. So then, what we can do is observe the experience. Observe the experience of pain. Particularly, try to locate that distinction between the raw physical data itself and the mental and emotional reaction to that raw data. So the easiest way to do this is, when you're feeling pain, focus all your attention on that pain. This is the opposite of what we're used to doing. What we're used to doing when we feel pain is we try to avoid it. We try to ignore it, or we try to cover it up, or we take medications to make it diminish, or we shift our body around to try to make the pain go away, or we stand up, or we go for a walk, or we find some way to distract ourselves, or we start fantasizing, or we nod off. Basically, we'll do anything we can to avoid facing the experience of pain, because it's unpleasant. So of course we don't want to feel it. We want to avoid it. However, when we avoid pain, we never come to an understanding of its nature. We never come to a recognition that it is a voluntary process which we are engaging in intentionally. The only way to recognize that is to face it completely. So when the pain arises, we don't run away from it, we dive into it. We don't reduce its intensity. We allow ourselves to experience it at maximum volume, maximum intensity. What is this pain? You want to look at that pain as though, again, the same approach you take to any meditation object. You want to look at it as though it is the most interesting thing in the entire world, as though there is nothing that could possibly be more interesting and more exciting than your pain. Take that attitude, really investigate it, and stay right with it. Stay right there in the present moment, just observing those sensations as they're happening. And this is challenging, because it requires us to stay with an experience that initially is quite unpleasant. But as you hold your body still, and as you hold your attention still on the experience of pain, something starts to shift. You'll start to recognize the nature of pain. You'll start to recognize the nature of sensation. You'll start to recognize that the sensation itself is, in fact, neutral. There's nothing wrong. There's no problem. You'll recognize that the problem is entirely a creation in the mind, and that therefore it's a problem we don't need to create. So that switch, again, it takes courage, because we have to turn and face something that we normally run away from. It takes dedication and persistence, because the nature of pain is not readily apparent. Because we've already decided what pain is in our minds. We've already decided that pain is automatic, it's uncontrollable, it's just part of the body. So it takes a willingness to put down our pre-existing belief about what we think pain is, and to explore the possibility that pain is not quite what we think. That pain is not physical. Pain is not unavoidable. Pain is, in fact, optional. It's voluntary. So the first time I finally got a really clear view of what pain was when I was meditating for 4 hours straight, every day, for a period of several weeks, actually. So it was during a meditation retreat. So we were doing, it was morning to evening meditation, like we're doing today. Except the monk who was leading the retreat, he said that while we didn't have to, he was highly encouraging all of us to try to sit continuously from 1:30 p.m. till 5:30 p.m. Sit continuously. Don't get up, don't move, just hold still and keep doing your meditation practice for 4 hours straight, every day. And of course I thought this was insane. I was like, he can't possibly be serious. He must be exaggerating. Or maybe this is just some crazy practice that he does to torture himself. I don't know why he's doing this. But he can't possibly be serious. So of course the first couple days I continued doing what I'd been doing throughout the retreat, which is you sit for a while, and then you walk for a while, and then you sit for a while, and then you walk for a while, which is what you normally do during meditation retreats in most traditions. But I noticed that every single day, this monk would sit down at 1:30, and he wouldn't move until 5:30. At 5:30, he would get up. And I was like, well, he's doing it all the time. He's doing it every day. He says it's a very valuable thing to try out. I'm going to try this too. So I sat down the next day. I sat down at 1:30 and I resolved, I'm not going to get up from my seat until 5:30. So, and this went perfectly well for about an hour or so. And then somewhere around an hour to an hour and a half mark, of course I started to experience very severe pain in the body, or at least what I perceived as pain in the body. On the encouragement of the senior monk, I stuck with it. Instead of trying to run away from the pain, instead of standing up and going out to do walking meditation, or going off to try to sneak away and lie down somewhere where no one would see me, or go to the library and find a book, or some other way of trying to run away from my pain. Instead, I sat with it, stayed with it. And it continued to be miserably painful. In fact, the pain kept getting worse in the beginning. Because my attitude towards it hadn't shifted. Initially, I was just taking it as this ascetic practice of like, I will sit here and endure this pain. But I wasn't yet actually investigating the nature of pain. I was just like, I will endure this horrible experience. And so it kept getting worse. And the reason it kept getting worse is because I was still hating the sensation. My aversion towards the sensation was still extremely strong. So again, what makes pain painful is not the physical sensations. It's our hatred of the physical sensations. If you stop hating pain, it's no longer pain. So initially, coming back to my story, initially the pain didn't go away. In fact, it kept getting worse. Because I was just trying to power through it. I was trying to hold on to my hatred of the pain. And at some point, somewhere around the 2-hour mark or so, I finally recognized what I was doing to myself. I finally recognized that I was creating pain. By hating the sensations I was experiencing, I was creating pain. And it struck me how incredibly absurd this is. So who here likes to inflict pain on themselves? Okay, one person. You're an exception, that's fine. I'll speak with you privately later. The rest of us, reflecting on, once again, that we don't like to inflict pain on ourselves. So then every single time we experience pain, there should be that reflection. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? Why don't I stop doing this to myself? And that shift of no longer inflicting pain on yourself does not necessitate any change in your physical conditions. It's strictly a change in your mind. It's the recognition that all suffering is self-inflicted. All suffering is mental. All suffering is voluntary. It's never from the outside. We blame the outside, but ultimately it's entirely internal. It's entirely our own choice. Even just sitting for 2 hours straight, if you've never sat that long, it will change the way you view pain. The 2 hours is a little bit short for that practice. 3 hours is a better minimum. Anyway, what I actually found with this though is so after I got past that recognition of the nature of pain, so the perception of the body changes. There's no longer any perception of pain in the body. So then there's no reason to stop meditating. So it occurred to me, I can actually meditate as long as I want. There's no need to get up at any point. So when it came 5:30 and the bell rang to end the afternoon session, I didn't get up. I was like, why would I get up? My concentration's going great. My body feels amazing. Why would I stop meditating? So I actually continued for another hour or so. And so this is what I was doing, what I did every day throughout that section of the retreat, is I sat down at 1:30, and even when the bell rang at 5:30, I was like, well, actually, why would I get up? Things are going so well. The thing, though, is that this is not a permanent shift initially. It's incremental. So, yeah, on the first day, I did have a breakthrough in my understanding of pain, somewhere around the 1.5 to 2 hour mark. The next day, when I sat down, I still had to go through pain. It was easier to get to a point of recognition because I had a memory of what it's like. I had a memory of what it's like to experience sensations that I normally label as pain without hating them. I remembered what that was like. And it's very interesting because you'll have the sensations and you'll recognize like, oh, this is what pain feels like when you don't make it into pain. You'll recognize it's actually the same sensation. It's just not pain anymore because we've stopped making it painful. So it's not quite like anything you've experienced so far if you've never done this practice before. It's a very interesting sensation. So it makes an impression on the mind. So since I already knew what that was like, it was easier to get back to. But I still had to get back to that point each day. So there is an incremental nature to this way of investigating pain. It's not necessarily like you just have to sit down for 4 hours once in your life and you'll never feel pain again. It's not that easy. Because pain is a process. It's something that we do. It's an action. It's an activity. It's not static. It's dynamic. It's a dynamic process that we engage in. And it's based on habits. So we need to change the habits in order for pain to stop being part of our experience. We need to change those underlying habits. And that requires concentration. That requires focus. It requires introspection. It requires exactly what we're developing in this retreat. It requires the ability to closely watch the mind for an extended period of time without wavering, without turning away. Then you can start to wear down these inner habits of self-torment. So physical pain, that's one of the first things that probably all of us will encounter. Some of us may have even encountered it so far. Closely related are the whole other range of sensations that we label as unpleasant, which may include dullness, achiness, itching, restlessness, a whole range of physical sensations which we decide that we dislike. So we all deal with it the same way, which is we just stop hating those sensations. We stop disliking the sensations and they stop being a problem. So from one perspective, it's quite simple. But it's also extremely challenging because it does require a fundamental shift in the way we react to our experiences. So next I'll speak about a more common list. So the 5 obstacles to concentration. So the 5 called nivarana in Pali. So these are briefly interest in sensuality, aversion, sleepiness, restlessness, and doubt. So 5 obstacles. So without addressing these 5 obstacles, it's extremely difficult to gain concentration. So it's important to know about these 5 obstacles and watch for them in your practice to really rein your mind in from getting caught in any of these 5 hindrances, these 5 obstacles. So the first one, interest in sensuality. This is kama chanda in Pali. This is not just sensuality in the more exciting sense of sex and drugs and music and food and more exciting things. It's actually interest in any kind of sensory experience. So like even if you're interested in going to the beach and feeling the sun on your face, kamachanda, sensual desire, it will prevent your concentration. If you're interested in going to an art museum and looking at fabulous artwork, kamachanda, sensual desire, interest in sensuality, that will impede your concentration. If you're just interested in going and taking a shower, that's a sensory experience. Basically, any sensory experience, if you allow yourself to get caught up in it, if you allow yourself to get caught up in wanting any sensory experience, that will prevent you from developing concentration. So the only thing you should be interested in is your meditation object. That's it. So far in this retreat, I've given 3 meditation objects. So the primary object to use is your hands. So feeling the sensation of your hands. So just this region right here, that's it. So within that, you'll actually find there's an enormous amount of variety. So it's actually a relatively large object as meditation objects go. If you want a finer object, you can focus just on your thumb tips touching. If you want a very sharp, refined point. Or maybe just the feeling of your fingers, if you don't want to feel your whole hands. Or you can expand your awareness to encompass more of the body, so still centered on your hands, but expanded to encompass the body. So you can kind of expand or contract the object as you wish, so keeping your hands as the center point. So again though, that's your meditation object. So when you're using that, that's the only sensation you should be interested in, if you wish to attain concentration. The other 2 objects that I've recommended so far, so loving kindness meditation, which we did this morning, and what we're particularly after there. So of course I gave a way of getting in touch with loving kindness, with metta, which involves bringing to mind certain people and reciting certain phrases. That's not metta. Those are really tools to help you produce metta. So metta itself is a feeling. It's an attitude. It's an emotion. So it's not something that requires any particular mental activity or any discursive activity in the mind. It's something that you feel immediately in the present moment. So that's also something that's worth taking an interest in, is an interest in the feeling of metta. And the third technique that I recommended was the repetition of a meditation word. So the word I recommended was focus. If you have any hesitation about what word to use, just use focus. Because ultimately, the word you use doesn't really matter that much. It's just having something to repeat in your mind to cut off the tendency towards restless or unnecessary thinking. Decidedly negative or hostile connotation. I don't particularly want to give examples. So we'll stick with focus. Focus is nice and plain and straightforward, and it suits the theme of this retreat. We're trying to develop focus. So again, stick with the word focus. So again, then the interest there is in maintaining the repetition of that word. Again, as if it was the most interesting thought, more interesting than any other thought that might appear in your mind. So in this way, if we take a solid interest in the meditation object, and we take no interest in other sensory experiences, then naturally our concentration will grow. Naturally our concentration becomes strong. So it's just watching that tendency, our tendency to get caught up in wanting sensory experiences, in wanting something different, in wanting anything in particular, or even anything in general, and putting that down. So one thing that's extremely valuable. So first off, acknowledging that indulging in sensual desire will prevent us from making any progress towards concentration. It'll impede our path to enlightenment. So first, just acknowledging that getting caught up in sensual desire is not helping us. It means we're just wasting our time. It means we're just sitting here and enduring all this pain and boredom for nothing. So that's one thing we can do, is just reflect that interest in sensuality is wasting our time here. Another thing is to reflect that even if we get what we think we want, it will not make us happy. So this is one of those cheerful things that we like to say in Buddhism. So no matter what you think you want, it won't make you happy. So what is it you want? Don't give me examples. So what is it you want? Do you want ice cream? It won't make you happy, even if you get it. Do you want to go to the beach? It won't make you happy, even if you get it. Do you want to have sexual activity? Even if you get it, it won't make you happy. Do you want to watch TV? That definitely won't make you happy. It's like, well, what do you want to do? It's not going to make you happy. So just reflecting on the inherent inability of any sensory experience to produce permanent, reliable, complete satisfaction. Any sensory experience by its very nature is temporary and unsatisfying. So why pursue them? Why get caught up in such things? It's a waste of time. It won't make you happy. And in fact, what it does do, when we engage in the quest for sensuality, when we go out seeking sensuality, what we're doing is we're underlining the habit. We're strengthening the habit to seek happiness in the outside world, which then is weakening our ability to seek happiness inside ourselves. It's weakening our ability to seek a detached happiness, an independent happiness, an unconditional happiness. And of course, this is not to say that there aren't pleasant experiences, because there are. There's all kinds of pleasant experiences to be had in the world. However, they are all temporary and unsatisfying. So what we're seeking in Buddhist practice is we're seeking unconditional happiness. We're seeking reliable happiness. We're seeking complete happiness. And that can only be done by understanding the nature of desire. And that can only be done by releasing the obsession with temporary, limited, unsatisfying experiences. So this way, dealing with sensual desire, it is, of course, necessary to gain strong concentration, but it also is helping us work with the quest for enlightenment in a more direct way. So again, it's one of the very first things the Buddha said was the Four Noble Truths, that all of our dissatisfaction, discontent, anguish, misery, sorrow, all of it is caused by desire. And if we want to be free of suffering and discontent and pain and misery and anguish in all its forms, all we have to do is get rid of desire. Pretty straightforward. So as we work on eliminating the interest in sensuality in order to develop concentration, that's also contributing to our development of liberating insight. So as I mentioned before last night, this is a concentration retreat. The focus of this retreat is on developing strong concentration. But it will also contribute to one's cultivation of insight practice as well. So the second obstacle to consider is aversion, ill will, disliking, rejecting. And I already spoke about this to a fair extent in relation to pain. So it's important to then take that same principle and apply it to all of our other experiences. So what is it that we dislike? What is it that we have aversion towards? What is it that we get caught up in rejecting or hating? So it might be people. There's one person in particular that these days people really like to hate. I'm not going to name any names, you know who I'm talking about. Though some people like him, but many people hate him. Or it's often experiences, like we hate not getting what we want, or we hate it when our hair is tangled, or we hate it when people snore, or we hate it when the cushions aren't soft enough, or we hate. Well, let's just look at that. Look at what that's doing to ourselves. First off, when you're caught up in hating, you will not gain concentration. It's impossible. The state of mind that's necessary in order to gain concentration is a relaxed, focused equanimity. So the mind needs to be undisturbed but fully aware, sharp, bright, clear, and undisturbed. So not veering towards either liking or disliking. Neither attaching to nor pushing away. So aversion then, as a pushing away, as a rejecting of an experience, then is a impediment to the development of concentration. It also has a way of obsessing the mind. And of course this varies from person to person. Some people are more strongly prone towards hating things than others. I personally am strongly prone towards hating things. So it's just noticing that's the tendency of the mind. So when you know the tendencies of your mind, then it's easier to pull back from them. It's easier to identify. It's like, oh, I'm starting to do my hating thing again. It's time to hold back. It's time to restrain myself. Because I know that's self-destructive. I know it's not helpful. I know it prevents me from making progress on the path. And in fact, it generates reversion, backtracking, backsliding. So often it's hating people, hating ideas. So you might find yourself remembering people who have done wrong to you, or who have insulted you, or have harmed you, or have said things you didn't like, or treated you unfairly, or you can come up with all kinds of reasons why to hate someone. But the truth is that when we engage in hating, what we're doing is we're damaging ourselves, we're hurting ourselves, we're impeding our own progress. And actually, hating itself feels remarkably unpleasant, which is another reason, by the way, why it's an impediment to concentration. So concentration practice, when I get into talking about the nature of jhana, particularly the nature of first jhana, it's extremely pleasant. It's an extremely enjoyable, pleasant experience, dominated by pleasant physical and mental sensation. So the unpleasantness of aversion is not in sync with the nature of concentration. It's moving in an opposite direction. It doesn't line up. So this is one reason, again, why I had to start the day with loving-kindness meditation. So loving-kindness is the polar opposite of aversion. It's this very soft, open-hearted, gentle, accepting, tolerant attitude towards the world and towards everyone in it. So when this attitude is firmly grounded in the mind, then it's impossible to experience aversion. It's impossible to fall into negativity or hostility or resentment or grudge-bearing. And it also tends to produce a pleasant experience in body and mind, which faintly resembles first jhana. So it can start to put you in tune a little bit with what it's like to experience deep concentration. So loving-kindness meditation then forms an excellent starting point on our quest for strong concentration. So the next obstacle to speak about is dullness, drowsiness, sleepiness. Sometimes this is physical exhaustion. So if you're not getting enough sleep, or if you're doing a lot of hard physical labor, then you may experience physical sleepiness, physical exhaustion. And there's actually not very much you can do about that. You can try to stay awake, and I'll talk in a minute about various techniques for staying awake when you're feeling sleepy. But actually, in that case, the best thing to do actually is to go and take a nap, to give your body the rest it needs. However, that's extremely unlikely to be the case during a meditation retreat, because, at least here anyway, because here, as you may have noticed on the schedule, we're very generous with the sleeping portion. If you went to bed right after evening meditation and didn't get up until the bell rang, you would get 8.5 hours of sleep. That is incredibly generous. In many monasteries in the Burmese meditation traditions, you get 4 hours of sleep a night. 4 hours. We're giving you more than twice that. So very generous with the sleep allotment. So if you're feeling sleepy during the day, it's not actual physical exhaustion. The other one, hard physical labor, you'll notice we don't do that either. So a little bit of cleaning is not going to make you exhausted. So usually instead, the sleepiness or the dullness or drowsiness that we experience during meditation retreats is mental. It's not physical, it's mental. And that it's usually related to disinterest in the practice that we're doing. It's usually related to boredom. It's related to a lack of effort, to not trying particularly hard. So this is a bit of a vicious cycle, because when you're not taking an interest in your meditation object, then it's boring. And when it's boring, you don't want to take an interest in it. So then very naturally you pull away from it, you side away from it. So you have to actively take an interest in your meditation object. Make yourself interested. Be like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, I can feel my fingers. Really go at it with that attitude. Like, I'm not kidding. Go at it with that attitude. Like, it was just like unbelievably exciting. Like, think like a little kid who's going to the movies for the first time. It's just like, yes, this is so awesome. So you want that kind of attitude towards your meditation object. And then with that basis of a strong artificial interest, then your meditation becomes very engaging. So you artificially create this enthusiastic interest, and then your meditation practice becomes very engaging. And since it's engaging, it holds your interest. When you're really paying attention to your meditation object, it is extremely interesting. My preceptor likes to say, you're only bored when you're not mindful. So then this is something to watch. When we do start to feel dullness or drowsiness, or we're starting to feel hazy or foggy, really cultivate that enthusiastic interest in your meditation object. That like, what is it now? What is it now? Really cultivate that strong interest. And you'll find the dullness fades from your mind very quickly. In fact, it disappears almost immediately. There's a couple other things you can do. One thing that helps if you're actually physically tired, which can sometimes happen if you eat too much, or if you try to meditate right after you finish eating, then a lot of your body's energy is going into digesting. So that can make it hard to stay awake and alert. So in that case, it can help to keep your eyes slightly open. That can help keep you awake. If you're really having a hard time staying awake, then you can stand up. Again, I recommend saving that as a last resort. So only stand up if your meditation is really going so bad that like you just cannot stay awake no matter what you do. Then it's okay to stand up. Do not stand up as a way of escaping pain, because then you will not learn the nature of pain. So again, I don't say this to be a masochist, and if you stand up, I'm not going to like think ill of you, like, oh, he's worthless, he's not really trying. I won't do that. I'll just be like, yeah, I know, meditation retreats are difficult. I understand. They're really hard. They're really challenging. So sometimes you just got to give up for a few minutes. I understand. As long as you don't like leave the retreat entirely, it's okay. It's okay to quit working at the meditation for a couple minutes every now and then. We all do it. And it's not helpful. In fact, it's counterproductive. But sometimes you really feel like that's what you have to do. So where that is recommended, though, is if you are so sleepy that you keep falling asleep sitting down. That's a time when standing up is recommended. Another thing which is sometimes relevant is your meditation object. So, for example, there was a time for a couple of years or so when I was trying to do breath meditation, focusing on the breath. And it just did not work for me at all. And the thing is that when your meditation object is not working for you, then again, there's this tendency to blank out, to try to escape the experience any way possible. And one way that we escape the experience is by making ourselves sleepy, by making ourselves fuzz out, making the mind foggy and unclear. So sometimes if you're really sleepy, it can be related to, you might be using a meditation object that's not well suited for you. So again, I'm highly encouraging using the meditation techniques that I'm teaching during this retreat. So then rather than switching to something totally different, what you can do is change the way you're applying the technique. So again, focusing on your hands, you might try zeroing in to a smaller point. You might try expanding your focus to a larger area of focus. You might try sweeping your attention through the boundaries of your focus. So maybe like going in a circle around your hand, just sweeping your attention slowly through the experience. You can try, again, if you're using the meditation word, then you can try changing how you're using the word, using it more slowly or more quickly. You can try increasing the volume in your mind. So this is something interesting. Like normally we don't think of volume in terms of thoughts. Like we just think of all thoughts as just being thoughts. But they actually have volume, just as sounds do. So you can shout in your mind, just as you can whisper in your mind. So if you find you're having a hard time staying awake, start shouting. Focus in your mind, not out loud, in your mind. If you start doing it out loud, I'll make you go outside. So in your mind, just ramp up the volume of your meditation word. It's another thing you can do if you're feeling sleepy. And if you try all that and you're still having difficulty, then again, that's something you'd want to discuss with me during the personal discussion time. So the fourth obstacle is agitation or restlessness. And this comes in two varieties. So there's physical restlessness, physical agitation, and mental restlessness, mental agitation. So physical restlessness, what we're looking at here is the feeling of an over-energized body, the sensation of an over-energized body. So again, that's just a sensation. We don't need to react to it. So normally what we do is when we start feeling physically restless, then we start moving. That's what we're used to doing. That's our habit. That's our habitual reaction. Feel restless sensation, start moving. Well, here's a chance then to just look at the sensation. What is that sensation of restlessness like? What is that sensation of physical agitation like? And can we cultivate equanimity towards it? Can we cultivate a sense of ease and peace towards that sensation? To just allow it to be what it is without reacting to it. And what you'll find is you can. And actually what you'll find is that then that sense of energy in the body then turns into joy. It turns into bliss. Like the body becomes, it increases the feeling of energy in the body in a very pleasant way. So it actually contributes very nicely to your meditation. Again, if it's a choice between dullness and restlessness, pick restlessness. It's a lot better in just about every possible way. So the physical restlessness, again, you deal with it the same way you deal with any other physical sensation. Stay with it without reacting, and your attitude towards it will change. So cultivate that sense of clear, alert equanimity, and you'll be fine. So that's then the challenge in that case, is just holding still with the restlessness. The other kind is mental agitation, mental restlessness. So this is particularly the tendency towards a lot of thinking in the mind, or the tendency to constantly try to move your attention around. And this again, that one thing that tends to be caused by actually is it's caused by what we do throughout the day. So if you watch a lot of TV, then your mind is used to a constant onslaught of changing information. So you'll find that creates a tendency towards restlessness in the mind. Or if you went for a walk this afternoon and you were constantly looking around at everything, then that also tends to create a certain agitation in the mind, a certain restlessness in the mind. So to some extent, we do need to consider, what are we doing with our mind throughout the day? So not just when you're meditating, but all day long. So this is, again, why in meditation retreats, things are set up so that we don't have to think about things. We shut off our phones so that we don't get annoying messages from family members. We don't go on the internet. We don't read worldly books that aren't directly related to our practice. We avoid unnecessarily stimulating the mind with things that aren't directly related to what we're trying to do. But then when we actually have the experience of restlessness in the mind, there's a few things you can do. First off, using the meditation word. So again, the word I've been recommending to use is focus. And this serves two purposes, actually. One is that when you're repeating your meditation word, then first it prevents other thinking from arising, but it also gives you an immediate clue as soon as other thinking arises, because the other thinking will impede your repetition. You'll be going, focus, focus, focus. God, I can't believe my sister said that to me. Wait a minute. I'm not saying focus anymore. So it gives you an immediate feedback when you get lost. So direct mindfulness practice is much better for gaining concentration than repeating the word. But when you start to get lost in thinking, it tends to be more difficult to catch. Like you'll just be sitting there quietly focusing and, God, I can't believe she said that. Why did she? I don't want to have to deal with that right now. And it's like, well, wait a minute, where did those thoughts come from? Often we don't even notice until it's fully consumed the mind and we're completely caught up in planning, like, well, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to write this, and I'm going to do that this way, and before you know it, 15 minutes has gone by without doing a scrap of meditation. So using the meditation word is a way of giving you an immediate feedback when restless thinking starts to arise. But then it's also a way of drowning out or pushing away the thoughts in the mind. So when you notice you're getting caught up in thinking, then you just start really forcefully repeating that word. So again, like shouting it in your mind. Focus, 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 focus. And the truth is you can only actually do one thing with your mind in any given moment. So if you really stay intent on repeating the meditation word, it will drive out all other thoughts. And if you do this consistently, then eventually you give up. You give up on useless thinking. You just stop producing it. You stop engaging in it. Another thing that's quite useful. So normally we recommend sitting up straight during meditation. When you're feeling agitated or restless, sometimes letting your posture slump a little bit actually helps you settle down a little bit. So that's something else to consider. So if you're feeling sleepy, sit up very straight, and that'll help you stay awake and alert. If you're feeling very agitated, slump a little bit, and that'll help you settle down. So to some extent, you can use your body to adjust the state of your mind. This is not to be taken to extremes, because if you're then constantly shifting your posture around, then you won't get any concentration that way either. But it's just allowing yourself that option. And then also, the point of posture also is an important one to bring up, because when you start to get strong concentration, you do not want to move your body at all, because it will weaken your concentration. So even if you notice your posture is really bad, but your concentration is really good, don't fix your posture. Just keep with the meditation. Your body will take care of itself. Just focus on your concentration practice. Don't worry about your posture so much. You can deal with that later. So even if it means that your back hurts a little bit after the meditation, who cares? It's just pain. We already learned how to deal with pain. So the fifth obstacle that is to be addressed is doubt, skepticism. So Buddhism does encourage questioning. Buddhism is not a religion of blind belief. It's not a religion of faith per se. So there's nothing wrong with questioning, with asking yourself, well, is this actually true? This Four Noble Truth thing, is that actually true? This karma and rebirth thing, is that actually true? So yeah, it's fine to question, it's fine to consider, but not when you're trying to meditate. So doubt, this is also doubt in terms of doubt related to the technique we're using, or related to what we're trying to do. So when you're doing meditation practice, if you want to know whether or not the technique works, you have to do the technique wholeheartedly. If you're doing the technique, and while you're doing the technique, you keep going like, I don't know if this actually works, I'm not sure this is right for me, maybe I should do something different, then you're not doing the technique wholeheartedly, and thus you will never know whether or not it works. So put your doubts on hold. Save them for later. Save your questions for later. So what tends to arise is then through your own experience, you start to develop some confidence as to what works and what doesn't work. And then any persistent questions, again, you can either write them down, put them in the question box, and I'll do my best to answer them. Or when we start doing personal interviews, you can come and talk about your meditation practice with me one-on-one. And I'll help you deal with whatever's coming up. But when you're actually in a period of meditation, just do the technique wholeheartedly, unquestioningly. Just commit yourself to it and see what happens. That's the way to find out.